Okay, got it. I'm playing around with this. Yeah, just getting that. Yes, yeah. Playing around with this. Yeah, just getting that. Yeah, YouTube is always some minutes delayed for some reason.
Got a bit of a delay on it.
Yeah, we do have a delay on it. And somehow it gives me my own image rather than the stuff going on there, but that's fine, I guess, because of issue of privacy, which is fine. So if people are joining us on YouTube at this point in time, I know they'll get this sort of bit late down the line, but we're about to start the session on time, right? It's going to be delayed on YouTube. We just have another 2 minutes, and we intend to start as we stated before.
Rohan, I'll keep admitting people.
All right, thank you for that. And to avoid being distracted, I've kind of turned this away from me, but I'll monitor the chat if anyone is on YouTube and they want to have any comments to make at this point in time. It's fine, perfectly fine to give your comments. But we are starting in another minute or so, and I'm sure others will come in at the same time. If you're getting this feed at this point in time, feel free to share it along at your convenience so others can join. And of course, it will feature the presenters. So Nancy, if at some point, it's up to you as discussed. All right.
Okay, thank you.
And if you are practically hearing us at this point in time, we are about to start our session. And of course, it is going to be a wonderful session that we'll share and we'll want you to share at some point, so we do hope that you'll find this one interesting. All right, everyone is hearing me at this point in time. We do and will start on time as stipulated before. And before I do that, I hope you're seeing my screen at this point in time because we're about to start. I want to say thanks for joining us. And let us see where we can get started at this point. So just going into presentation mode here. All right, I want to say that, let me just ensure that we are covering this. Just get it. Just a second. This session is going to be recorded, and I'm going to ask for us to give lead and to this because at this point in time, we want to be able to share the content with others who are unable to come or attend. If you're able to see my screen, please indicate that you're seeing the screen at this point in time. It should have the presenters and our system of what's happening today. If you're able to do that, let us know. Is everyone seeing it? Do we get some yes at this point in time, colleagues? Let me see. Let me just ensure that the screen is being shared. All right. So we are both. I'm about to share my screen again. So let us start this.
I do see it now.
Okay, good. Excellent. Are we seeing that? You're hearing me? Everyone's hearing me? Hope so. Do we get some yes at this point in time? Yes. All right. Yes, thanks everyone for joining us at this point in time. Let me say it is really a wonderful opportunity to be here to talk with you regarding ChatGPT. And of course, let me say that this session is being recorded. We do have participants across the globe. As a matter of fact, I am sure that we have some individuals from Nigeria joining in, and why I've asked for the recording is that I'm sure that some of them are sleeping at this point in time because it's 1:30 a.m. and they've asked us to record for them. But for those who are joining us, thanks. Welcome to my individuals who are across the United States, Jamaica, Trinidad, and around the world. And it is an honor to be with my colleagues tonight to really address some issues that we have been talking about for some time. And I think as we move forward, I'd like to introduce the team. Today we have Nancy. Nancy, you want to say a few words?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're here, and we're all excited to be here and talk to you tonight about ChatGPT.
Wonderful. Sir Bennett, Luke.
Hi, everyone. We're just thankful everybody's here listening. It's going to be a great conversation. I just want to give a quick shout out to current students of mine at Purdue University, former students of mine who are on here, and also colleagues of mine throughout the years as well. I just want to let Kathy Cook know that I do have my coffee here. She and I have had so many conversations over coffee about technology and its use in education. I figured I should have the cup with me since she's on as well. So just a shout out to all of those people. Great to have you here.
Excellent, sir. Let me say the journey has been a long one for Luke and myself. Back in 2013, we met when we started to work at the University of Central Florida. We had many walks. Although he has gone to another institution, we still have many talks while we're driving about education, technology, inclusion, and how technology can be balanced with pedagogy. So I'm saying to myself, thanks for being a friend over the years, a critical friend, sir. I really appreciate it. Based on the time and the number of participants coming in, we said the best way is for us to use a chat feature during the session. And of course, at the end, we hope that we can exchange some ideas through the chat. Our wonderful support coordinator, Nancy, will be watching that chat to ensure that we also stay on time and to highlight some of the relevant points that you will make in the chat. So I want to say thanks, Nancy, for agreeing at the last minute to coordinate this session. And we are grateful as it relates to you for helping us along the way. No, we don't want to spend a lot of time just talking about our introduction and our stuff that we've been doing. So I want to move to the next slide, and I'm going to ask Luke to really go into it. No, too fast a bit. Go on and give us a definition or give an overview of what ChatGPT is. Over to you, Luke.
So we figured the best way for this session to get and to give you a definition of what ChatGPT is to actually ask ChatGPT, what are you? So we threw that through the system, and this is what we got here. That it's pre-trained language model, and it generates text, responds to questions, all sorts of things using deep algorithms. From my perspective, the easiest way to define it is it's a chatbot AI program. And it simulates conversational writing. So you make an inquiry, put it in the system, and it generates an answer, and it can do basically everything. If you ask it to write a poem about something, it'll write a poem about something. If you ask it to rewrite something of yours, it will do that. So as we that's kind of the basic version of what it does if you're not familiar with it. I really encourage you, if you haven't yet, to go just mess around with it a little bit to see what it can do for you.
Thanks. And let me say also that we were searching for a topic or title for this session, and one of us said, why not ask ChatGPT? And of course, it came up with the definition. So we are here really looking at the possibilities, where it's going to take us, and some issues that we need to address. So as we go through, we will define, we'll share some examples, and of course, we want you to think critically about the use of the tool in every aspect, their advantages and disadvantages. So we want you to also participate in this conversation. Now, as we move forward, I realize a lot of things are going on, really. You know, things have been moving at a rapid pace. As a matter of fact, yesterday when I was just finalizing the slides before sending them on, I came across these headlines. Real estate agency, they can't live without ChatGPT. That's a CNN report. You know, there is also concerns about ChatGPT passing examinations. You know, lawyers can now, if they had access to ChatGPT, they could submit their work, you know, and get their bar exam passed. You know what? There are problems that people are looking at now. Some individuals are saying they're worried about it. And when I look at the context of those who were invited, you came from an array of backgrounds. Some are in business, education, some are students. Everyone wants to know about it. And we have to acknowledge that what we know about it is that it's going to be here to stay. And therefore, because it's going to be here to stay, there are going to be some people who are going to object to it. So we have schools banning it, and not only schools in WA, but also in New York. And of course, you know, a professor is testing if ChatGPT could pass his final exams. So many things going on. But as we move forward, we want you to think about it, explore with it. And if you are exploring, go deeper into it at this point in time. Now, we thought about kind of looking at some examples, and we said to ourselves, what better way to maybe share some examples with you? So if you open the app, chat.openai, and this is by OpenAI, it will give you a search engine. And we could demonstrate this at this point in time, but I don't want to be losing my window. So if you at some point would like to try that, fine. So you have this, and you have this wonderful tool, and here you can type in a question. You can type in practically everything that you want to find information of. And I'm saying to myself, I had 3 full questions to ask. And one of the questions I asked was, will ChatGPT replace Google and other search engines? What are your thoughts? Let's get some feedback on that. Do you think, based on what we have said, something that can give you an answer rather than having several pages of content to look at? Do you think the future will establish this as a search engine that will replace practically other search engines, or so to speak? What are your thoughts? You can type it in the chat box so we can maybe look at some of the comments being made. Anyone? Yes, I see some answers saying yes, yes, it will, yes, it will. So therefore, the jury is coming out as it relates. Someone said, no, that's a possibility. Yes, yes, we're getting a mixture of responses, but I think it's early days yet. But for everyone here tonight, I thought we would have some examples that we would share with you. And if you had access to the search engine, and then ChatGPT, you could put your stuff in, but I think we wanted to look at some examples, you know? So we asked ChatGPT to do several things. And I want us to look at what it was asked to do. And then we did a pre-recording, because sometimes based on the demand now, you can try several times and not being able to get it. So we didn't want to play around with that. we wanted to get that information now. So what I did last night was to record the prompts using a screen capture. And what you will see here is real time. What I want us to do as we're looking at these examples is to assess the validity of it, how realistic it is. And we're going to ask some questions regarding these. And I'll pause at each one, and then Luke or myself will then ask a question regarding each example that is going to be used. So I thought we'd give some examples, and of course would move on at some point. Let me minimize this. All right. Okay, need to go forward. Yeah. So we thought we would do this. So here is an example of what we saw. Put a prompt in. This is just a letter to an employer telling that you're resigning. Yes, so here's it. It has written a letter to the employer. Luke, was this mine or yours?
That's you.
Okay, that's me. Yes, because yeah, and the letter is written in such a way that it says, I hope this letter finds you okay, and it goes on by stating the name of the company. But you know, the individual regrets leaving the company and assures the employer if there is anything that they need to address, they'll address it before they leave. And I think this is standard letter. As an employer or an employee, would you choose to write a letter of this? Would you enhance it, or it's okay as it is? What are your feedback? Can you give some feedback regarding this? What are your thoughts? Is it okay? I see we're getting some responses.
Yeah, okay, we've got toucan.
Okay.
Just needs to be adjusted for content, very standard.
Okay. Okay, fine. Very standard. And yeah, we have some thoughts that we want to share. So very standard. So let me do the other one now.
I like the comment also. It gives you something to work with. So you
Yes.
can use it as a starting point.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
So the next one, it's going back. I'll give you just a bit of a preface on the next one. We are going to ask it to write an exercise plan for a male age 38 who is 15 pounds overweight. Please include a meal plan. So I don't know if it will generate here where you can see it. So I'll talk a little bit as it's kind of working through that on your side of things. But essentially it generated an exercise plan with the warm-up. It's got strength training in there, cardio, it's got a cool down, and it's got just a meal plan that goes over breakfast, snacks, lunch. And so here it is coming up. What's interesting too is that if you put that same prompt in a couple of times, you might get two very different answers. So things are pretty much aligning with what I said here as it's coming up. Although when I did it a second time, it didn't have the HIIT workout in there, the number 3, and the meal plan was changed just a little bit. But I love the description there. Berries with a drizzle of honey. It sounds very nice as it's coming out there. So yes, we've got a full meal plan there.
Yes. But please do consult your doctor before trying anything like this, right? This one is a letter to Mr. Jones regarding the company changing contract. So it's writing the individual, and the prompt was just, let me see if I can move this so everyone can see the prompt. Letter informing Mr. Jones that the contract needs to be updated. And this one coming up again, I think this might be Luke's one. Luke, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. So we asked about nature versus nurture, write a psychology paper on nature versus nurture. Because one of the key things that we're seeing is people, specifically in education, going, oh no, this thing can write papers for people. Look at where we're at now. And if you notice, as this is coming up, the write the paper, nature versus nurture debates for a level 1 psychology class, and you can give it the exact word count there that you want. And it will come up with 500 words, but as you see when it comes up, as many of you noticed already, it seems very canned. You can note that there's not any citations in there. It's just it's going to feel very broad as you read it. I mean, a 500 word paper will feel a little bit broad, but you can see it's just kind of pulling some broad topics that it's getting about nature versus nurture and wording them somehow, but no citations, no anything like that. And you can tell as you read through it that there's certainly something missing when you look at it. So just curious in the chat, those of you in education, how many of you have heard that cheating is a concern, and what are your thoughts about that? Cheating with ChatGPT, I should say.
Yes. Yes. Let us have a little discussion. What are your thoughts on those at this point in time? Anyone?
That's a good point. I don't know how to say, is it Treseka? She says, it seems we need to address it by exploring its capabilities. Good point.
Yes. A little enhancing needed. Excellent. As a matter of fact, I had someone from Jamaica who was visiting my house recently, and when I showed him, he was really fascinated by it. As a matter of fact, he said he had some stuff that he wanted to do, and I told him that it can be used to get codes for spreadsheets or formulas for spreadsheets that he could plug in, because he wanted to use sheets with a job aspect that he's trying to do now. And of course, it will allow him to do that. So I think it's wonderful to have that. Critical thinking will suffer. That's a good point someone is making. That's a point I'm thinking about too, because if you think about just relying on the tool, it might be problematic. And I would say that if someone say, all right, you know what, I want to write a job application for applying for a nursing job. And by the way, he did write a critical care application for a nursing job the other day. And I asked my wife to look at it, and she is a nurse, and she said, well, it could work. It could work. The only thing missing was the discrete connection to practical work that was done to highlight that experience in the letter. So we can say it's generalized. I have a colleague, she's not here tonight, but she made clear to me the other day that she has some critical thoughts as it relates to the whole process of ChatGPT and how it operates. And one of the points that she made mention of was the issue that ChatGPT sometimes tend to operate within the construct of they're sentence connected, and they're selected to give a smooth flow of words, but sometimes you can see these are issues that can be connected to biases and so forth. We'll explore some of those in further detail. Luke, you had a point?
Yeah, well, Kathy said that not acceptable. I'm trying to go, it keeps scrolling now while I'm reading. It's not only general, but looks like it was not written for the course. So that's an excellent point. What I'm finding as I plug things into ChatGPT, and especially as I kind of explore can students cheat with this? You know, of course they can, but what I'm seeing is exactly what Kathy's saying, seeing something unacceptable. And so, and Trisecond brings up a good point too. Encourage students to use it as a starting point. I think that when you talk about education and what it can do, it's used as a starting point, and even in business, it's used as a starting point to start to gather your ideas, plug your ideas in about a topic, say, give me, you know, a starting paragraph on this, and it may help you get to that starting point when you have writer's block and things like that. And so, yeah, I would agree. What it pumps out is pretty unacceptable. It's very general. It will move words around. Earlier today, I popped a few bullet point ideas and said, okay, take this, and I plugged it in ChatGPT. I said, take this, and I need a paragraph using these thoughts. They were my thoughts. They weren't thoughts I got off the internet or anything like that. They're my thoughts. And it produced a very good paragraph about my thoughts. And I asked it to do 15 different paragraphs about the same thing. And what I found was, as it moved on, it would pull some of my ideas out, and it would then, the more I tried to get it to write different things, the broader it got. And so it's definitely what it pumps out as papers and things like that. You can tell for sure.
Yes, yeah, I think that there are some points that we have to consider. One of the things I did the other day, I asked it to I brainstormed some issues that address critical thoughts in our society, and I gave some examples, and I asked it, and what I did, and I think this is where accessibility comes in. So for someone who is unable to maybe write but can express their thoughts in a sort of way, so I did a dictation in Microsoft Word, and that text was roughly 3 pages long, and then I submitted it to ChatGPT to rewrite it. And of course, it came back because I contextualized that in such a way that it had some connections to England that I lived once. And it made a connection, and it produced a nice narrative. However, it removed some of my salient points from that discussion or from that article that I wanted. So I think it can go both ways. You know, I think we need to address some of the issues that we can look at. Now, as we go deeper, thanks for, let me just say thanks for those who are joining us on YouTube at this point in time. Rossi, thanks for joining. And of course, I see others. I'm taking a glance at it at this point in time. And Karen, I do see online, giving you my regards at this point in time. But we have to consider this. So let us move on, because we don't want time to run out on us, and we have not addressed some points. So let us move the other slide along, because I think we want to look at the benefits, then we start to maybe say something else. All right. So let's move on. So generally speaking, and I think it's at this point in time, Nancy, if it's possible that we could share a Google Doc, you know, just to get people to start populating their ideas, their thoughts. So Luke, back to you. Let's talk. What are some of the benefits you think at this point in time that we can get from this tool? I know we have touched on some, but can we touch on a few others?
Yeah, sure. So I think benefits, when I think through what are the benefits, I think also you have to step back and think about what you do, who you are, what your job is, and what areas you need. I think benefit wise, you know, we look at technology in general. When we are using it for educational purposes, or for business purposes, it tends to make things more efficient, more effective, or it delivers something in a different way. And those tend to be the 3 reasons why we start to use something more so than not. So I think when we look at efficiency, again, there's these times where I want to generate my thoughts and I cannot get them out of my mouth. I'm not sure, or on paper. And so I know that if I come up with, I go, okay, well, here are my ideas that I'm thinking of. What might writing about this look like? And ChatGPT can help there. I've got a friend in the business world who he runs his own small business, and there are tons of things that small businesses are having to deal with now that they weren't 20 years ago. So he's got a really cool business. It's a pest control type business where they go and if you have a certain snake in your house or something like that, they go catch it. Well, he, in that business, has to post on social media. He has to blog all the time, because advertising for those things is very different now. So it allows him to do that much more efficiently. So he's able to throw his ideas in, then edits what ChatGPT pops out, and he's able to get something out quickly. And so I think it does that. It allows us I think we can, from a teacher's perspective, if we want to generate some critical thinking questions about a certain topic, we could say, hey, I need some discussion questions for this, and it'll help us generate those. So there are those type of things that it's going to allow us to do more efficiently. I don't develop questions very quickly, and I'm not great at it. And so it's helped me on a couple of occasions, and I know others who are in the profession to generate some critical thinking questions very quickly. You know what you want to ask, but you just can't get it into question format, and it helps kind of reword there. So I think what it can do sometimes is it can give you the voice you're struggling with. But I also think if we think about classroom perspective, there's always this student in the back of the classroom, very smart, never talks, but we don't know that they're very intelligent and that they've got great ideas, and they may struggle to put them together. So I think as a benefit, it may give those students a voice as well that we don't often hear from, because all of a sudden they're going to be able to put their thoughts together quickly when they're having trouble getting those thoughts to process and get them out. So I think there's some advantages, but a lot of advantages, actually. I think we focus on the cheating, but there's so many more advantageous pieces to it.
I want to also add, Luke, because I think this is a critical point that we must understand, because it is going to democratize education. For far too long, we have countries that have not been able to get knowledge based on how things have been organized. And what if it's done and utilized correctly? It means that content area can be covered. And I'm saying content area can be covered with quotation marks, because we still have to give creditation to those who have contributed to the field. How we do that and how we go there is going to be another issue. And one of the reasons for us having this session is that we thought for ChatGPT, now it's open, why have a closed session and not share it? So having this sort of movement will require a framework, which I'll touch on further. But there are so many benefits that can be derived from it, because just imagine someone has issues that they need to address with their writing or their expressive skills, and they write a letter and they want to submit it to an employee or employer. They could type a letter in, type it up, and ask it to structure it possible and get feedback. So I think as we look at it, we have to say, where are we going to go? But within the benefits, we have to understand that as we are putting things and feeding things into the system, as I said, who is going to be owning that content? I said to Luke, maybe a couple of minutes before we started, I wrote a letter telling ChatGPT, I asked ChatGPT to write to my wife, tell her that I love her, words without end, and I don't want us to ever part. We should live in harmony for the rest of my life. And of course, it wrote a letter. And then I said to myself, wonderful letter. Any woman or person seeing this would understand one portrayal of commitment, right? But no, I've written that letter. Who owns that content? So let us move on. We know the benefits. There are some benefits that we're skeptical of certain things, but let's just explore. Do you have any other benefits? And at this point, if you do have some ideas, drop it in our Google form. So at least we have some documentation to share as you see fit. I think Nancy has that link at that point in time. So there are benefits.
And Dale also made a comment in the chat about the copyright issues.
Yes. Yeah, copyright issue. But Nancy, yesterday you shared something with me. You wrote
I asked Chatbot to write a book report about To Kill a Mockingbird, and it did. And it came out pretty good. It was a pretty good book report. I was very surprised. But I was able to, but I put it in the other tool that checks for that, and it said that it was written by this particular tool. So that was nice. What was
Oh,
that called? Why chat zero? What is it called?
Chat zero. So we're going
Chat
to,
zero
yeah, we're going to
that I
touch on
experimented with.
Yes, excellent point. So therefore it's able to do it. So we have to think about these in context, right? So we know something's happening. So there are benefits, but with the benefits will come some level of concerns. So let us look at some ethics. Luke, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it's important to evaluate not just what ChatGPT does, but what it doesn't do. And so when we talk about ethics, there's certainly the copyright piece and who owns that thing that ChatGPT has generated. Those are certainly big parts. But if we really look at what it doesn't do, if you're trying to push out a paper, it does not know what is accurate. It just is looking for certain things and popping that out based on your question. The accuracy can end up being an ethical issue for you if you try to turn in a paper with ChatGPT. The information it's pumping out may not be reliable. It doesn't provide an unbiased response. It just provides a response based on wherever it's pulling from for the algorithm. So there's a possibility of popping out some very biased stuff from ChatGPT, and if you're not careful to read it and edit it to make sure to pull that bias out of there, there's going to be some issues. So it also does not evaluate its own outputs in any sort of way. It just puts them out. I think what students and some are seeing it as is this magic 8-ball where you ask it a question and it pumps out an answer for you and you just go with it. It's not that. It's just kind of popping out words as the algorithm tells them to put together conversationally based on these topics. But it certainly doesn't. There's going to be some ethical issues with what it doesn't do, and specifically, depending on from where it's pulling, it may be a quite biased answer that you get out of it. So I think those are some issues there, ethically speaking. So things to be careful of for sure.
Yes, and that is so true. A colleague shared an article with me most recently, Rebecca, and the article highlighted the bias that can be found in ChatGPT. As a matter of fact, it made some comparison with academic writers who were males and females and found that if you look at it, it positioned the male as more dominant and more professional in the field of academia. So we have to be careful of that. Now, when we talk about algorithms, we have algorithms that are based on things that individuals have formulated. And I've always stated that if you continue to build upon a system that is biased, what you're going to reap? You're going to reap, of course, some level of bias. Now, another thought that I saw most recently is that a Harvard undergraduate set of students, they decided to test ChatGPT to submit comments in response to a government request for public input. And of course, they were able to stack over 1,000 comments based on the rapid movement of ChatGPT. Now, with this overwhelming response, it can stew the sort of idea what or feedback governments want over a period of time. So we have to be very careful. ChatGPT has been questioned as it to some extent, will it cause our democracy to go down? And that's a critical thought, because if you have an instrument, if there are no guidelines, then you can have individuals that are doing things that they should not do with the tool. So I think these are important things that we have to consider. And as I thought about the issue of ethics, we are at a point that we can see cheating has been a part of it. People are talking about cheating. But the bottom line is, if we are truly to look over things from a critical lens, we can say to ourselves that the bottom line, we need to have guidelines. We need to have a code of practice, because individuals using this need to have some level of integrity. You can't apply for a job and say, all right, you know what, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write a job application for me to work as a hotel manager, and pulls out a nice piece of writing and everything, and you submit it. Because I tell you what employers will begin to do. They'll begin to do the next level of check, and it's to submit it to Chat Zero. So just be mindful of that as you go through. I wanted to position ChatGPT and just look at this picture I created using another open system from OpenAI, where this is an image generator. I asked the image generator to develop 3 pictures. One, the depiction of poverty in the United States, a depiction of poverty in the Caribbean, and a depiction of poverty in Africa. And in all 3 pictures requested, a Black person was central to these pictures. Now I'm saying to myself, this is a sort of bias that can creep into text as well as into images. So we have to be very careful as we go through and look at the content. And as educators, as individuals using this modality, we have to be very careful as it relates to that. Now, moving along, I would say to those, and I don't know if Luke wants to touch on this at this point in time, ChatGPT was not the originator for cheating. You saw the originator for cheating. You saw it then. What are your thoughts, Luke? How can we develop fair practices if we're going to submit work and submit letters and do that sort of thing? What are your thoughts? And audience, we're asking you to give feedback to.
Sure. So with ChatGPT, again, being able to evaluate it for what it can and cannot do is important from an educational perspective. I think we're at a point where we're not going to be able to shut ChatGPT down. I know a lot of schools are trying to do that. A lot of educational institutions, we can't shut it down. Cheating has always been around. People try different ways. Sometimes I think the important thing is, one, really know what, set up some guidelines. I think Koki actually brought this up in the chat, set up some guidelines for how ChatGPT can be used in the classroom. I think that's very important. I think trying to decide, okay, how is it effective for me to use and teach my students to use the appropriate use of it? I think part of becoming a digital citizen is learning appropriate use of these technologies that are coming out. So, modeling that. So there are ways, I can see somebody, I know those who teach language arts and things like that are having a difficult time because there's a lot of writing. I can see the possibility of putting a story into ChatGPT and having your students analyze the output. What's missing? How can we critically think through the differences between the ChatGPT output and what the story really is? See it generating some key conversation pieces like that. Really using it to help develop the critical thinking skills instead of just deciding, okay, it's going to take them away, so let me take the tool away from students. But how can we use it to generate critical thinking skills as opposed to be worried about what it does? So I think as far as the cheating goes, for sure, there are going to be some students who try to do that. But if we stay ahead or right on the level of understanding ChatGPT as they're making changes to it and everything, I think we'll be able to kind of understand what the outputs that are there. I think creating things so that students are not just giving you writing, but they're also providing you with context. ChatGPT can't provide context of what's happening now. Having your assessments be more authentic, more project-based, or even if they do use some ChatGPT for writing, it's not going to matter really in the overall project because you're looking for these real world connections. You're looking for something that ChatGPT can't do in your students. I think so. Opening up how we assess, becoming very authentic in what we do. I think the faculty members and teachers that will struggle with ChatGPT and cheating are the ones who have been doing the same type of thing year after year and haven't expanded how they assess students in. And it's not that they're assessing students poorly, it's that they're just doing it in a way that ChatGPT can do it. So we've got to expand our thoughts on that and make things much more authentic as far as assessments are concerned. So I don't think it's something to be scared of. I think what happens in education is we decide something is going to take our power away. And so I think instead of saying that, we flip it, say, okay, well, how can we leverage the power to best meet the needs of our students and to make sure they're critically thinking through these things? So as we evaluate it for what it can and cannot do, we then decide how we're going to leverage what it can and can't do with our students. And I think that becomes a critical piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's spot on. And for those, I would say if you're not in education, it is the tool that you can use to find information that you can use to even enhance your daily life, because you don't have to be searching through 5 or 6 pages, but it will summarize. Notwithstanding whatever information you get, you still need to do your back-end research, because I think that's so important. Remember the one that we showed earlier regarding the losing weight, 15 pounds. And of course, I would put at the bottom, if I were to share that with anyone, seek medical guidance before you try this, because at this point in time, ChatGPT will not take anything in the legal aspect, and you will not get any compensation for that, because they have made it clear that information on their system is not 100% accurate, and they have made that clear. Thanks for that, Luke. And if we are monitoring that chat, anyone else has an idea or something to share, Nancy?
Sorry, I'm muted. No one has anything in the chat, but they are adding to the Google Doc.
Okay, good. And thanks. And this is where Nancy made mention earlier regarding this one, GPT-0, and it's designed to recognize text written by AI. So therefore, we have an issue there that we have to be concerned of or with, because I think just like someone invented this, we're going to have someone that has already invented something to say, all right, you know what, it can be added on. And I don't know if you're using certain software that you can see various text being generated as you're typing. It's possible that when you submit certain document, it will automatically go through a software, especially for certain work that individuals will check on that. So what I'm saying is you can use it. You can use the tool, of course, but enhance it in such a way that it improves not just a generalized sort of product, but more accurate in nature. And of course, you have to do your back end, because one of the big things that I've thought about as it relates to content is who owns that content. It certainly did not develop itself, but I know that content was developed by research, and academics will be very upset because they know they wrote a piece of paper, they know that concept was mentioned in their paper for the first time, and now they're seeing it kind of being generalized. So there's a possibility, but notwithstanding, it stands to benefit so many individuals who would not be able to buy that expensive text, and they can have an idea of what's necessary. I also heard that a set of doctors using it for some treatment. I don't know. They said that they just have a general idea of what needs to be done, and then they can find the missing gap. So we are at a good pace. And as a matter of fact, I want to go to the other slide, because I think we don't need to talk about the future. We're here now, and you think it's just okay, and you're practically saying to yourself, you're excited. The next stage of this technology, you can't even imagine what's going to take place. So let me get some of your thoughts. Luke, what the future holds for us.
So here is what I currently know. It is here. People are using it. The rumors are it will get stronger. So here's what I think when I think of the future. It's going to become stronger. It's going to do what it does much better. It's going to personalize things more. What I find is these technologies seem to be able to learn from their user. So if we create personalized accounts for something like this, I can really see it starting to personalize how you write even more. So it sounds even more like it's coming from you. I could see this being employed heavily in the workforce and also in education. If I take myself back, some of what I do when I think about the future is I think about the past. I remember my teacher saying to me that I would not have a calculator on me at all times. And knowing basic math has been very important to me, but I do have a calculator on me at all times on my cell phone now. I remember when I was doing spelling words, it's very important to learn how to spell. I'm not saying these things are not important, but I remember teachers saying to me, you will not always have something that will tell you how the word is spelled. Now I encourage my students to use spell check. I encourage them to use Grammarly. So I encourage these technologies that help students writing become better. So I'm wondering if that's not the direction we're pushing when it gets more personalized, is we actually have something that will help individuals who struggle in a certain area with a certain piece help their thoughts get out better. And I've said that earlier. So I can see that happening. The other thing that I see happening is this idea of composite AI, where it's not just ChatGPT, but several different types of AI that do different things working together. And I'm interested to see what that looks like and what does it become. And again, I want to go back and reiterate, I'm not saying spelling is not important, grammar is not important, math is not important. I'm just saying that technologies that before we thought would never exist actually help us in those areas now when we're struggling here and there. So I can see this going that direction as now. We're all a little bit scared of what it can do, but once we kind of figure that out, it's going to be a very helpful tool, as well as other pieces of AI to personalize educational experiences, work experiences, things like that. I think it's going to be really interesting what happens.
Yeah, I have a thought similar to your thoughts, Luke, and I'm saying algorithm is designed to recognize text, right? The future looks exciting for me. My worry is, at this point in time, it's really about the unregulated part of it. It's not regulated. And within this concept, I'm thinking about computer-based interface, BCI. And this form of technology practically allows individuals to process things using the brain. And of course, that software can be able to type. For example, language learning models will now begin to think and represent people's thoughts as they go on. And research is moving towards that. So just imagine someone can implant a brain computer interface in someone, and that person can then release certain thoughts and it's typed. And my thought is, what if these thoughts are then moved into another sort of AI sort of product that allows things to happen? What if that gets hacked? It might sound far-reaching, but these are dangerous grounds. It sounds like fiction, but what we are looking at now, a couple of years ago, we would have thought it was fiction. So what I'm saying at this point in time, we are at a point that we are going to see a lot of things happening at this point. I'm going to open the chat because I realize that we can manage. And at this point, I'm going to unmute also. Please, if you want to talk at this point, feel free, because I realize that we're not as much as I expected in numbers.
Because I'm used to having Grammarly installed on my system, on my phone, everywhere.
Okay.
I have dictionary to spell check.
So everyone is unmuted now. So
it is voila for me.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So everyone is unmuted now, so you can.
I think we're getting a lot of background noise with the muting. Are we able to make it so they can unmute themselves when they talk? Dr. Jawala, you're muted.
Yes, if you would like to share a thought at this point in time, we do have some time to take your thoughts. Please feel free. You have the ability to unmute yourself and put your hand up, and then we can have a conversation. You can also unmute yourself.
Oh, Keith has his hand up, or his or her hand up. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So can I speak?
Sure.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. As my interest, I'm interested in teachers' work, and I've considered through this lecture that I've considered the use of this technology in the classroom, but I rather think that this technology would be helpful in teachers' work. For example, in Japan, the teachers' communications are really kind of old school. They talk in person every time to like share the educational materials or share the class content. So one of the best way is to as someone said, this would be really great for in the first step. For example, So like teach, maybe I think this technology would be used in like to help the email to be faster. So I sometimes this will decrease the burden which I shared in the Google Sheet. Yeah, this is
Okay.
what I thought. This is what I thought. Yeah.
Thank you for that, because I think sometimes and another point, that just to add to that, if you gave it 3 main items that you wanted to write, for example, you wanted to tell someone, listen, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late, I'm at the airport, the plane was delayed, and you put another bullet point, it could write you a nice email. So I agree with that. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing. I spend a lot of time on emails and I read and reread to make sure that they're gonna be read in a positive manner. And so I really want my communication to come out positive. So that's fantastic to take your thoughts in an email and ask ChatGPT to make sure they sound positive some way. I really like that. And that's an efficiency piece for sure.
Nice.
And I've also considered use for classroom content. And one thing I came up with is I think the ChatGPT will decrease the time of use less classroom time. Like for example, one is to show the time to show the examples, example answers, such as math or science. I think it's the ChatGPT's weak point is to if it's used for long purpose, it will suffer students' critical thinking, but it will also in other way decrease the teacher's burden. For example, just tell what is the answer of 27 plus 28 or something. But I know it's a little bit easy for a problem, but other problem we can apply the technology for another problem. So if it's just the problem that has just one answer, it will show the process to solve the problem. So I think also it's also helpful in the classroom content, maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw somebody the other day on LinkedIn. I wish I could remember who it was, and I'd attribute this quote to them because it was fantastic. They said if you watch Star Wars, it is like C3PO, where if you give it an input, it gets confused easily. And you're not sure what you're gonna get out. I was like, that's perfect right there. So yeah, that's a great point.
Thank you.
Constance has a hand up, please. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thanks for the invitation to be on this thing. I really, when I received the flyer, I was excited. And I figure for me as a small business person, I'm sitting here and I have a lot of drafts that I'm working on, business plans, operation manuals, all these different things. And I have all these ideas in my head and I'm putting them on paper and I keep writing and rewriting and rewriting. And I think this is my miracle out of what I'm going through right now. So thank you guys for opening my eyes and giving me some more enlightenment as to what it can do, because I'll definitely be taking advantage of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Constant. Let me give a shout out to Constant, because Constant and we went to the same high school together in Jamaica. Thanks for supporting this session, and I'm sure you'll find it useful for various forms of communication in quotation. I'll leave it at that, right, Constant?
I will. I am so sure of that. Thank you.
Right.
It's so interesting to me that what we might fear in education is a lifesaver for small business, where there is so much to do and so much more now than ever before. I love those use cases for it. That'll be very interesting to see how that plays out, but I can see it being such an efficient tool for business owners.
Yes. Yeah, generally speaking, I think it's a way forward. What we'd like to do as we wrap up. Any final words, Luke, from you or anyone else in the group?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it really is an exciting time, and I really encourage those who, are possibly, again, possibly afraid of what it might be able to do in changing what we do as teachers and other businesses as well. Those who fear it to really look into it and begin to evaluate what it can do, because I don't think it's going away anytime soon. And I think it's going to become harder and harder to detect. So what exactly can it do? And how can we leverage the power? And that takes some evaluation. I highly encourage you to follow people on LinkedIn and other places who are talking about this and interact with them. There's so many people who are ready and willing to kind of interact and see and explore this. So I find it an exciting time of exploration. I also, as somebody who teaches, mildly fearful as well, but really excited about the possibilities and how it can give voice to those who may struggle with having that voice in writing.
Yes, I see someone here from the Classic Travels Limited, and I would want to say at this point, it's an ideal sort of tool to write descriptions of places and to even do itinerary that you want for an individual. As a matter of fact, I said to ChatGPT the other day, write me X, and it just created 10 steps that I needed. We're at a wonderful place in our history, as it relates to technology, and there's going to be much more movement taking place. I would say to you, embrace the movement. There's going to be some resistance, but as we use the technology, let's use it responsibly, in the sense to ensure that we have our voice. Our voice needs to be a part of everything. And I want to say at this point in time, it was a wonderful occasion for us to address this audience, and the recording is going to be available. Please share. And as a matter of fact, I would say to you, look out for more, because Luke and myself, and of course, our wonderful person in the background, not saying a lot, Nancy, is going to be there to help us along the way. And I'm going to ask Nancy to say a few words at this point as we wrap up.
Well, again, I want to thank you all for coming here, and I want to thank Luke and Rohan, two of my favorite colleagues on this earth, for inviting me to be part of this. And I'm learning along with you, and I greatly appreciate this opportunity. I also want to encourage all of you to be going back and looking at this Google Doc. People have been adding to it. There's some really good information there, so don't forget about the Google Doc as well. And thank you again, Luke and Rohan.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Nancy. Thanks. And remember, use it well. Make it your own. Have your voice in. But remember, as you submit, it's possible that you're helping someone to write their own, because you don't know where it is that you have put the content in and where it has gone. So just be mindful of that, because it's machine learning and it's using your input to also develop other inputs. Thanks, and have a wonderful night. And please drop us an email or a line. Let us know how you enjoyed the session. Take care. I'll stop the recording now.
Thank you too. Thank you for the invite. It was good.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming.
I definitely will be using this tool. I need, this is the sort of help I needed.
Yeah, trust me, as a matter of fact, one billionaire said the other day, he's no longer, he can't live without it, a billionaire.
Well, I can imagine, because for me, I have a lot of writing I'm doing right now. I'm starting a farm. Everything is organically grown, and it will be sold from the location. I'm also putting together like healthy recipes, and
Yes.
I will also be doing some manufacturing. So some of the products that are coming from the farm will be reproduced, but in a format that's good for people that are diabetic and hypertension. So I'm sitting and I'm doing a lot of writing, recipes, research, business plan, all of that. And it's just so much going on in my little head. And
Yeah.
as you know, I'm not a young girl anymore.
Yes, yes, yes. But you use it well, Constant. Use it well. I think it will work out well for you. You know.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
It seems so. I definitely
Yes.
will.
Trust me. A lot of people. As a matter of fact, someone said I've developed an obsession with ChatGPT. You know, but but as you put your recipes in, remember you don't know where these recipes are going, so just be careful. Don't put the secret ingredient in.
Well, no, for me, it's not so much my recipe, but it's a matter of putting things in